Is Ryan Gorman, host of the Ryan Gorman Show on iHeartRadio's NewsRadio WFLA. Thank you for being here. Tell me about your night and what you experienced.
Well, I was on the air. We had to evacuate out of the Tampa Bay area and come down to our studios in Miami so we could be assured that we would have everything that we needed to cover the storm in depth from beginning to end, and now in the aftermath of the storm. So I went on the air at 6 p.m. last night. Wrapped up at 2 a.m. and then went back on the air from 5 to 10 this morning. And it's intense when you're covering a storm making landfall, the community that you love, that you grew up in. And I think people need to understand, we're focused on Hurricane Milton here, but this really is a combination of two storms. Hurricane Helene just 2 weeks ago, which brought record storm surge numbers to the Tampa Bay area. And now this event, which brought record rainfall and wind totals that we hadn't seen before. So it's been a 1-2 punch for our region.
Yeah, debilitating, not just for weeks, but for months as this cleanup. Ryan, as you talk to callers who chose to stay behind, tell me about some of their experiences and some of the danger they are facing.
Well, these storms, they always seem to come at night. I have covered so many in recent years, hitting Florida, southeastern portion of the United States. They always seem to come at night, and that just amplifies everything. It makes everything a little more frightening. So you get the texts and the calls, the wind is howling, and it doesn't stop. Imagine it sounds like a freight train right outside your window for hours on end, and it's dark and you just don't know what's happening. Is that tree going to come down? Am I losing part of my roof? All of those things running through everyone's heads. And so it's very, very unnerving. And, Helene, in the aftermath of that storm 2 weeks ago, we heard from so many people, never expected that kind of flooding, never seen that kind of storm surge before. And then last night, never felt these kinds of winds, never saw that kind of rainfall before. So again, they're separated by 2 weeks, but it's almost like, it's one storm that's caused so much damage to our region.
What are some of the areas that we haven't yet been able to get to? I'm thinking about the barrier islands. Do you have any assessment or indication on how bad the damage is in those places and if anybody stayed behind?
I think there were a couple different things that were happening yesterday. The first story were the tornado warnings that popped up in parts of the state. It wasn't that people were complacent or they weren't prepared. It was that it was unexpected. It was happening in parts of the state that, weren't in the cone, weren't going to be part of a direct hit from Hurricane Milton. So a lot of tornado damage that happened. And then in the immediate Tampa Bay area, it was the rainfall. We had emergency flooding, terms that I had never heard before. We were setting records for rainfall over the course of an hour. And then you had from Sarasota down to Fort Myers and Naples, the storm surge event. So you had really a number of different things happening at the same time. And that's why right now there's this big assessment that's going on. I think in the Tampa Bay area, we didn't see the catastrophic storm surge, thank God, that we were afraid we might see. But every area of the state, all these different regions got impacted in different ways. There's inland flooding. So I will say, while I have this platform for a quick second, we are going to need the nation's help. There's no question about it, because, again, two storms in the span of 2 weeks, two major hurricanes. It's a lot.
Yeah, well, and the tornadoes, Ryan, I'm with you. Like that was unexpected. You get tornadic, kind of swirling around these hurricanes. But yeah. I don't know, what do we have, like 130 tornado warnings? I mean, it was just unheard of. When you talk about resources needing the help, the news page will turn. Sadly, it always does. What is the greatest need right now in Florida as you look kind of long term for folks who don't live there directly but want to give?
I think the basics, the American Red Cross, I had them on my national show last weekend in response to Hurricane Helene, and especially some of the damage that it did, not just in Florida, but in Georgia and North Carolina. It's going to be the basics. You're going to have people that are going to be without their homes for an extended period of time. It's going to be a big cleanup effort here, because don't forget, I think the state did as good of a job as possible at getting rid of the debris from Helene, but there was still a lot of debris from the last storm that was out there that now is all over the place in the aftermath of this storm. So it's a bit of a mess. It's going to take a lot of work to clean up and rebuild. I have no doubt that we'll do it, but and like you said, the news cycles move fast these days, but keep Florida in your thoughts, because it has just been one thing after another recently. It's exhausting. I think I can speak for the whole state when I say that.
Yeah, well, and I hear that in people's voices, right? I mean, it's amazing to see you smiling this morning. I know you've had a very, very long night, but we talked to people before this storm who were looking at the pile of debris on the side of the road, and they were just emotionally distraught, just wiped out. And now you have this. How do you meet folks in that moment when they just feel like, oh man, here we go again?
You know, it's one of those things where people just want to hear other people who are going through the same thing. It brings a little bit of comfort. You know, we try to answer as many questions as we can. We had meteorologists on every hour all night. So, you know, people were concerned about the weather. Is it almost over? This and that. We can get the answers to all those questions. Radio is very unique in that way. During these storms, there's a connection and a community that's built, especially when that power goes out. It's unlike anything else. And so, you know, we get through it together.
Yeah, well, and you become a lifeline. I know a lot of people have the crank radios. They're still listening. And yeah, it does become something that gets you through the night. Listen, I know you've got a long road ahead. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it, and our best as folks there pick up the pieces.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Good to talk to you.